Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online roll video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we're taking a look at the Meridia's Guardian tank roll setup so you guys can see for yourselves how it's set up. You can see the CP, you can see the skills that I use on my bars, why I unlock other skills, and how you can just use it with the gear sets available to this setup to take advantage of the full purpose. So let's go ahead and get started. We are a Wood Elf Templar. You do not have to be a Wood Elf. I explained this in the character build video. I chose Wood Elf because my main is this. This is my pretty much exactly like my main is on live, except for some slight differences because I haven't totally changed them into this setup. So as you can see, we do have 64 into health. We have 18k magicka, 35k max health, 24k max stamina, and we do have 2200 weapon damage with a 28% weapon critical. We do have a 931 mag recovery and an 1105 stamina recovery, and it's because of the way we have this set up, we get such high recovery rates. When we have a potion going, we go to 1094 mag recovery with 1318 stamina recovery. And then, of course, nothing else changes because we're using a tripod. Our health recovery changed, but by a very small amount. Moving on to our spell resist, we have 24,788 spell resistance with a 1994 physical resist. Fully buffed, we have 2932. And then if we use one ability, our ransack, and we go back in here, we actually go to 3132 for the duration of our buffs. And it's a really good way to keep your character more in line with those higher resistance buffs. But remember, every time you step out of this circle, your resistances will go down. So I'm going to set it, I'm going to walk out of it just to show you. So I go to 2730, and then if I'm on my back bar, I actually go to 2426. That's why I like to stay in the circle to keep my resistances higher. Alright, moving on. We do have the Lord Mundus Stone. This is going to increase our max health. That's how we can keep our health pool higher. We are using Tri-Stat Food. This gives you health, magic, and stamina, all increased above 4,000 extra. And then moving on to the gear. We are using tripods. This is going to give you health restore, magic restore, and stamina restore. All three resources are going to come flooding back. Plus, it's going to give you major fortitude, major intellect, and major endurance, increasing health recovery, mag recovery, and stamina recovery by 20% for this 47 seconds. So that's one of the reasons why you're going to take one of the passives later on that I explain. Alright, going over the gear sets. Starting with the monster set, we have Swarm Others. This is mainly here for primarily when you're tanking. As you can see, the one piece adds stamina recovery. The two piece, when you block an attack from an enemy that is further than 8 meters away, you spin strands of silk, pull your enemy to you. This effect can occur once every second. Now, you can use this even outside of combat, outside of being a tank, and it does work out as long as you got enemies hitting you. The next set we run is the Curse of Hunting's Rage. Now, this is mainly here for the higher capability to play a damage dealer outside of tanking. As you can see, the 2-piece adds weapon critical, 3-piece adds max stamina, 4-piece adds weapon critical, and the 5-piece actually adds weapon damage. The other nice benefit to this is you can take advantage of that high crit for even when you're playing a tank for some of the abilities you use on your bar. The next set we're using is the Meridia's Blest armor. It's kind of what this build is built around. And that's because when I played through the main story, I do want to give you guys a little heads up. When I played through the main story and I did the whole quest line, and you find out that you're kind of being helped by Meridia, it just inspired me to make the character based around this whole idea that she's like a knight of Meridia, not a paladin of Meridia, more of a knight of Meridia. So. And let's go ahead and go over the traits on the gear with the enchant. So on the head, we have Invigorating with a Trirune. This is getting a multi-effect enchantment with the Invigorating trait. As you can see, the trait increases health, magic, and stamina recovery by 11. It's a very small amount. It's very minute. But it's enough that it adds up with the other recovery things you're using to give you higher recovery. So we are using that in there. And then on the chest, we're using the same thing, multi-effect enchant with an Invigorating and then the same thing on the legs. This way we can get 33 more health, magic, and stamina recovery. And since we're a wood elf, we actually get even more stamina recovery, so we can take advantage of those higher stamina recovery rates, especially from the monster set and the Meridia's Blest armor. Alright, on the smaller pieces, we are using Sturdy with stamina enchants. This is going to give you that higher stamina pool and the ability to block more damage effectively. Moving on to the jewelry, we have 2 Trirune rings. This is going to allow us to more or less make our character hybridized, so we can play tank healer or damage dealer whenever we need to. And then we have that higher weapon damage here to boost our abilities while we're tanking and while we're damage dealer. Blessed necklace, we have with infused and a magic recovery. With the higher magic recovery, that's how we can reach this higher value, plus these 3 invigorating traits apply to that. So does the stamina recovery from this and this. And I didn't go over this set. I'm just going to go over it real quick. 2 pieces physical resistance, 3-piece stamina recovery, 4-piece physical resistance, and then the 5-piece. When you block an attack, you have a 32% chance to blind the attacker, causing them to miss all their attacks for 5 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. So basically, you can keep it up every 10 seconds. You can keep it up for 5. So. Moving on to the sword and shield, we are using sword and shield for tanking with this, and as you can see, the shield is sturdy with a multi-effect enchant on it. The sturdy trait, of course, reduces your block cost. And then we have a decisive sword for ultimate gen, and also for the we have an absorbed stamina there for stamina recovery resource purposes. The little bit of damage it does is nice too. Moving on to the back bar, this is unusual for some people as a tank. For me, it's natural because this is how I tanked for a long time, and that was running a 2-handed great sword with a Crusher enchant on it. Now, Crusher with the 2-handed allows you to get the maximum amount of the Crusher advantage, and you can use one ability to apply Crusher, or light or heavy attacks, your choice. As you can see, we do have infused on the weapon trait. This increases our weapon enchantment effect by 30% and reduces the enchantment cooldown by 50%. So it will stay applied the whole time for the duration of 5 seconds. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on now to, well, I should say, no, it lasts 5 seconds, but it allows you to reapply it every 5 seconds. So now let's go ahead and move on to the skills. Make sure you unlock all your class passives for this. Weapon skill passives for the sword and shield and 2-handed and their abilities. Onto the armor, you want to make sure you unlock all the passives that can affect you in the role that you're playing. So with light armor, it's more for when you're playing healer and tank, and then medium armor for when you're playing stamina DPS and tank, and then heavy armor for when you're tanking. Soul magic, unlock all the passives. You can be a vampire or werewolf with this, but I prefer not to be because it doesn't fit my character's persona. Fighters Guild, make sure you get all the passives and skills unlocked. Same thing with the Mages Guild, unlock the skills and passives. The skills you want to use and the passives you'd like to have available. Psijic Order, do the same thing, and then Undaunted, do the same. Alliance War, I do the same here. As you can see, I have a lot of skills available. This is in case I need to swap anything out because I'm having trouble with my group getting through content or something. If I need a purge, conditions, removing negative effects from my allies, I have one. If I need something to help slow enemies, CC them, I can use Razor Caltrops. And that's why I unlock so many different things like synergies and all that, is so that way if my group needs it, I have it available for my character. Alright, let's start with the skills. And just make sure, like I said, you get your racial passives. Alchemy, medicinal use is really good. When using a potion, resulting effects that last 30% longer. That's how that potion has 47 seconds on it, is because this makes the effects last longer. So you want to make sure you get this. And then with provisioning, and the provisioning one, there's 2 in here that help your food and drinks last 20 minutes longer, and that's Gourmand and Connoisseur. Now, the skills I primarily run on my bar are these. Ransack. Now, this one does damage. It also taunts the enemy for 15 seconds. It does apply only major fracture, not major breach, and You also gain minor resolve, increasing your physical resistance by 1320 for 12 seconds. A lot of people are going to say that's really selfish of me, but at the same time, it's not, because I gotta stay survivable. As a tank, my job is to stay alive. And if I go down, then it's not just my group's fault. It's my fault for not having the tools set up right. But that's why I use this ability. You don't have to. You can use either of the morphs here. Moving on to Deep Slash. I like Deep Slash. I know a lot of people like Heroic Slash because of the ultimate gen, but my Templar class actually has, in the Dawn's Wraith, a thing called Prism, which, casting a Dawn Wraith's ability, generates 3 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds, and I do use this ability to get that ultimate gen. So I don't worry about minor heroism on this. I like applying minor maim to multiple targets. Now, the nice thing about Deep Slash is surprise an enemy with a sweeping lunge, dealing 5,649 physical damage to them and 1,363 physical damage to 2 nearby enemies. You reduce the movement speed of all enemies hit by 60%. This is how I can also get more CC effect out of playing a Templar. All affected enemies hit with minor maim reduce their damage done by 15% for 12 seconds. So I also get minor maim applied to all 3 targets. Next we have Blazing Shield. Sorry about that, I had a real quick twitch. Blazing Shield, this is a great damage shield. Surround yourself with solar rays, granting a damage shield that absorbs up to 12,355 damage for 6 seconds. This portion of the ability scales off your max health. Each nearby enemy increases the shield's strength by 4% when the shield is activated. When the shield expires, it explodes outwards, dealing 34% of the damage it absorbed to nearby enemies. Now, the great thing about this shield is you can take advantage of the Aedric Spear passives, 2 of them, Spear Wall, gain minor protection for 3 seconds, reducing damage taken by 8%, and Burning Light. When you deal damage with an Aedric Spear ability, you have a 25% chance to deal an additional 3,627 physical damage or 2260 magic damage, whichever is higher. This effect can occur once every 0.5 seconds. So every time this gets removed and it blows up and it comes off of me, I have a chance of proccing Burning Light. Also, whenever I activate it, I do get 8% damage reduction, and that even applies to the damage my shield takes. Yes, it does. Okay, moving on. Next, we run Echoing Vigor. Now, this is kind of a floater ability I put here because I like to keep a self-heal, but I also like to do some group support when I'm tanking, and this is just a way for me to do that. Now, this has a larger radius than Echoing Vigor. As you can see, the radius is 15 meters. Echoing Vigor is only 8. So you actually get 7 more meters added to it, and it actually covers a big radius. Renew your forces, resolve, healing yourself and nearby allies for 7,476 health over 5 seconds. The other reason why I try to keep this up as much as possible is I do get the Sacred Ground, which gives me minor mending, increasing my healing done by 8%. So you want to keep this up, your resistance buff, along with this as much as possible. That way you can keep that incoming heal for your group and stuff. And it is really nice to help support your healer with some self-heals for your group. Next up, we have Defensive Stance. This one bolsters your defense, reflecting the next spell projectile cast at you back at the enemy. The reflected spell projectile stuns the enemy for 4 seconds. While you have the shield equipped and this ability slotted, the amount of damage you can block is increased by 8%, and the cost of blocking is reduced by 8%. The nice thing about this is what I'll do a lot of times is I'll do this. I'll cast it and then I'll block while it's up, because while it's up, if a spellcaster hits me with a ranged spell and they're within 8 meters, my monster set will pull them in, but it'll also stun them on the way because they're going to get hit by their own spell, reflecting back at them. So it'll stun them and it'll lock them in place basically where I'm at. The next ability we have on our bar is Shield Discipline. Now we have this because reinforce your shield, allowing you to automatically block all attacks at no cost for 7 seconds, so it costs you no resources. Your one-handed sword and shield abilities are reduced by 100% while active. So that means this costs you nothing, this costs you nothing, this costs you nothing for the duration of this 7 seconds. Moving on to the back bar, where we have our two-handed sword. The first ability we have is Brawler. Now, you have to understand, Brawler is based off of your max stamina and weapon damage. That's how you can gain the most effect out of it. So you focus your strength into a mighty swing, dealing 5,176 physical damage to enemies in front of you. It does hit in a cone, and it's got a 7-meter arc. So it's got a 7-meter arc in front of you that you swing. When you swing it, you'll see where the blade, that glow is. That's 7 meters around you, like halfway around you, that you can apply this effect. So what this does is it'll do that much damage, 5,176 damage, to all the enemies in that area. And then you gain a damage shield that absorbs 4,048 damage for 6 seconds. Each enemy hit increases the damage shield strength by 50%. So if you hit one enemy, it's going to look like this. And you're going to get a 5k shield. If you hit no enemies, you're going to get like a 4k shield. If you get a bunch of enemies, you can get up to a 25k shield. So moving on. The next ability we have on our bar is Power of the Light. Now this one, you summon Expanding Beam of Pure Sunlight to doom an enemy, dealing 3,341 physical damage to them and copying all their damage taken for 6 seconds and releasing 20% of it as additional physical damage to them. The maximum amount of damage copied is 14,163. I do want to show you this. I'm going to go ahead and buff my sword up, my sword arm up. You can see my weapon damage is now 2794. And this ability now does less, or does the same amount of damage. I keep forgetting this one doesn't do that. But the physical damage up front is the same. I thought that the maximum copy damage did increase based on your weapon damage. I was wrong. I'd make my mistakes. But the other nice thing about this is this also afflicts gives the afflicted enemy minor fracture, minor breach, and reducing their physical and spell resist by 1320 for 9 seconds. This gives you the ability to place minor breach and minor fracture plus major fracture on the enemy. Most healers will have minor fracture, so this is going to give, or major breach. So you're going to have major breach, major fracture, minor breach, minor fracture, and crushing all on the same target all at once. And on a boss encounter, that's going to make that fight so much easier, because you're going to kill it a lot faster. Next ability we have is another floater. For now, I have Binding Javelins here because I like having CCs and the ability to control movement of enemies. So this one, you hurl a spear at the enemy with godlike strength, dealing 4,495 physical damage and stunning them for 4 seconds. I mainly have that there for a CC. I might swap it out for Ritual of Retribution, which is a magic AoE heal and damage over time, but it's also a synergy. Or I might even put Blazing Spear here for that purpose. And just like with the front bar where I have Echoing Vigor, if I need a greater heal, I might even put Honor the Dead. It just depends on my situation. The other ability I like to use here instead of those ones is Radiant Aura. The reason why is champion the cause of divine glory by applying minor Magicka Steel to all enemies around you for 24 seconds, causing you and your allies to restore 300 Magicka every second when damaging them. So any enemy that you have this applied to, even if you're in a pack of enemies, when you're fighting trash, if I throw this up, all trash enemies in a 28-meter radius around me get this Magicka Steel applied to them. Any damage I do to them, any of them, is going to give me 300 Magicka. So if I hit 3, I'm going to get 900 Magicka back. And yes, that's how it works. Alright, while slotted, you also gain minor fortitude, minor endurance, and minor intellect, increasing your health, stamina, magic recovery by 10%. That's the other reason why I like to keep this back here, is because if I do have this here, most of the time what I'll be doing is I'll be running the support skill from here called Reviving Barrier on the front bar for basically to be more group supportive, and this way I can do that minor Magicka Steel for my group. And you see the rate, you can see that thing got it on there. This guy down there even has it on him because it's that big of a radius. It's huge. So they got minor Magicka Steel on him. If I can hit this one and that one at the same time, I would get Magicka Steel back I'd get Magicka back from both of them. This is actually the best way to apply Magicka Steel in the game. The next ability we have on our bar is Rally. This is here to give us major brutality, increasing our weapon damage by 20% for 33 seconds. It's also a self-heal. You heal for 796 health every 2 seconds while active, and additional 1233 health when Rally expires. The final heal is increased by up to 564% in proportion with the length of time Rally has been active. So this thing can actually heal you for a lot. And if you have this down, your restoring focus, that's increased by 8%. So that 564% you get healed, you get an extra 8% on top of it, the total. So you can heal yourself up to 20-30k with this. Alright, moving on to the last ability, we have Restoring Focus. Create a Ruin of Celestial Protection. The Ruin grants major resolve and major ward, increasing your physical spell resistance by 5,280, and you also recover 240 stamina every second while standing in it. Standing in the Ruin increases physical resistance and spell resistance granted by 50%. They are the only class that gets this high of resistances from their own self-buff while they're standing in it. Next up, we have Aggressive Warhorn, and this is our last, the ultimate that a lot of people like to use for tanking. Mine switches around depending on my group dynamic. So, sound a Warhorn to rally your forces, increasing your allies' max magicka and max stamina by 10% for 30 seconds. You and your allies gain major force, increasing your critical damage by 15% for 9 seconds. So, nice trade-off all around. But that is it for the skills. We are going to go over the CP real quick, starting with the red tree. We have 66 in the Ironclad. This reduces your damage taken from damage over time effects, or from direct damage attacks, by 22%. We have 31 to Thick Skin. This reduces damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. We have 56 into Hardy. This reduces your damage taken from physical poison disease damage by 12%, and 56 into Elemental Defender, reducing your damage taken from Flame Frost, Shock, and Magic damage by 12%. Moving on over here, we have 40 into Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. And then we have 19 into Quick Recovery, increasing your healing received by 5%, and 2 into Heavy Armor Focus. This increases your physical resistance by 209, just to balance out more between your higher spell resistance and your lower physical resist. Moving on over to the green tree, we have 40 into Warlord. This reduces your break free cost by 16%. We have 16 into Sprinter, reducing your sprint cost by 10%, and 16 into Bashing Focus. This reduces your bash cost by 10%. Moving on to the middle tree here, we have 43 into Arcanus. This increases magic recovery by 10%. 75 into Tenacity. This increases your max stamina and magicka of your fully charged heavy attacks restore by 14%. As a tank, you're going to be taking advantage of this mostly. Moving on, we have 40 into Tumbling, reducing your dodge roll costs by 16%. Shadow Ward, 40 points, also reducing your block cost by 16%. Remember, we have a lot of block cost reduction already within our passives from Sword and Shield, from here, and from the sturdy pieces we have equipped. Moving on over here, we have 43 into Blest, increasing your healing done by 10%. When we get that minor mending, we also get an 8%, so we have an 18% healing done. Moving on, we have 35 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases the light and heavy attack damage you do by 20% with all stamina weapons. And then Mastered Arms 40, this increases your direct damage done by 16%. Make sure you fill in these so you can at least unlock Reposit. This is going to give you, when you block a melee attack, you have a 15% chance to deal 4,523 physical damage to the enemy. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. And then moving on to the last blue tree, we have 56 into Mighty, increasing your physical poison disease damage by 12%. 56 into Precise Strikes, increasing your critical damage and healing done by 20%. This applies to your Brawler, or not your Brawler, your Rally and your Vigor. And then 40 into Thaumaturge, increasing your damage done with damage over time effects by 16%. You really don't need this unless you're using a damage over time effect, but since I never know if I'm going to need it or not, I just leave it here. Alright, and that is the CP. Now you guys probably want to see what this thing looks like in action in a dungeon, and I'm going to show you. So we are going to go to my favorite dungeon for testing right now, that is Depths of Malatar. And the reason why I'm choosing Depths of Malatar is just a really good dungeon for this purpose of showing you how this build can work in the most difficult, challenging group content in the game right now. And that's because besides Trials, the Sunspire Trial that came with Elsweyr, and the Wrathstone DLC, those are the two latest content with the most difficult enemies in it. So I'm going to show you this build in action as a tank in here on Veteran mode, just to show you how well it can mitigate damage and kind of control things.
Your note said abandoned, as in no one left the bar inside.
Take it to the Imperial census.
So what I'm going to do is, when I get into this room, I'm going to pop Rally right away, and I'm going to go ahead and throw Brawler so I can get the damage shield, a small damage shield going for myself. So Rally, Brawler, and then I'm going to throw up Radiant Aura. And now you can see, like, all these enemies have Magicka Steel on them, and anytime I do my Heroic Slash, I get a lot of Magicka back. So, see, right there, I just got 300 Magicka Steel, it said, because all I have to do is throw my Heroic Slash out, and I'm getting Magicka Steel, because all those enemies have Magicka Steel on them. And if I have an enemy at ranged, see if I can get the spellcaster to... Nope, he's just going to charge me. But you can even see, like, my block cost is super low. And with this, I'm almost like getting back what I put into it. Yeah, but I can almost tank just with the two-handed here because these guys are just trash. And I wouldn't say tank, but more or less I can do this to them and just kill them a little bit easier. I mean, just Rally alone is keeping me alive. I don't even need to use my damage shield. The only reason why I am is because it does damage back to the enemies, and it helps me redirect a lot of the damage. Shouldn't have done that, dude. Shouldn't have done that. Alright, All enemies are dead, and that's pretty much the effectiveness of it. I mean, I could make it all the way to the boss and show you guys that, but honestly, it just takes a long time for me to do that, and I just wanted to kind of get this out of the way so you guys could see how it works. It is a very effective tank. It can do a lot more than what it looks, and that's because it's designed to just take a beating. So, and that is it, my friends, for the Meridia's Guardian. I hope you guys like the new Meridia's Guardian tank roll. If you do, you guys know what's coming next. You can hit that like button. You guys like the videos, you can also subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.